cruising at 184 and stable. I've been learning to manipulate things with my Omnipod, but you can obviously tell that I'm not getting enough insulin at lunch. A 1 to 15 does not work. My original dosing on injections was a 1 per 10, and I'm using a 1 to 12 at breakfast, so I imagine that I think I'm going to end up pretty close to the same insulin to carb ratios at my meals, but like I said, maybe just a touch less because of the better absorption. I definitely noticed I've had pretty much better absorption, especially since my basal insulin is close to what I used to take, but it's just a little bit of a reduction. But when they originally started me, it was on a pretty rapid reduction on insulin to carb ratios. I have no clue why they started me that way, even though their formula said so. But that's what I'm going to be talking about in today's video, my first week on the insulin pump and my transition. So with that being said, we'll jump into today's video. Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. And as you can tell by the title of today's video, I am going to be talking about my first week experience on the Omnipod pump, talking about my transition and kind of my experience with like comfortability, getting used to bolusing and everything else. So for those of you that have just joined my channel, I've been living with type 1 diabetes for nearly a year. And I just switched to the Omnipod insulin pump about a week and a half ago. And this is the PDM that I use because I have the Dash. It is a touchscreen. It literally looks like a cheap little smartphone, but this is what I bolus from. This is what I put in for carbs. This is what will calculate a dose for me. I can extend a bolus. I can do all kinds of things. So, I would say like the pump trainer was extremely helpful. I definitely appreciate all the different things she gave me, all the different techniques she went through and explained things very clearly and made a point to show me things that I would have never thought about or things that were new features that maybe I didn't research because thinking I was getting the regular system. The Omnipod Dash does come with a few extra features that they did add, like obviously the touchscreen, the lock pin, and she was explaining some of the things like the apps that'll be coming out in the fall, or not the fall, the summer, and all those different things. So first of all, my pump trainer was extremely helpful. The transition from like actually going from injections to a pump, however, wasn't the smoothest because of the fact that my endo team royally screwed up my doses. And not so much the basal dose. I manipulated my own basal dose now that you guys kind of saw my basal training vlog. And what you will see on Sunday is me talking about basal testing. Not so much the basal dose. It was more that they royally screwed up my insulin to carb ratio. So anytime I would eat, my blood sugar would skyrocket 200 to 300. It would just sit there and it wouldn't do nothing. So of course I couldn't tell if it was basal or bolus insulin that was really giving me the grief. So then I stepped back, did my fasting test, figured out pretty much what areas I need less insulin, when I need more, when I need that 0.4 base that they originally started with me, etc., etc. So I went right away on insulin. I got to bypass the saline trial because my endocrinology team was comfortable with me starting right away on insulin, and I was very thankful for that. Basically, when you're starting right away on insulin, or even if you transition from saline to insulin, they will ask you the night beforehand to stop taking your long-acting insulin because they don't want any of that in your system, because a pump gives you your basal insulin. Actually, it's right here. Your pump gives you basal insulin delivery every 5 minutes. It will give you a pulse for so many units an hour, whatever you have set up for different times. And as you saw in my video, without that Lantus at my breakfast too, a normal dose was only covering for the food. It wasn't exactly covering for my liver glucose spillage, so my blood sugar skyrocketed way over 200. And that was hard to come down with, and it was really hard for me to fight high blood sugar because of the fact that I wasn't getting enough insulin at meals. So overall, as far as like the Omnipod, I am so thankful that I chose this pump because it is super comfortable. I like the idea that I can go in the shower, go swimming, be active, and not worry about tangling up tubing. I've never ripped this off. I have rammed this against walls already with insulin in it, and it has not fallen off. I appreciate that I can extend my bolus for heavier fat meals, that I can manipulate my basal rates at any time that I need to, and these are features you can't do on injections. when you give yourself an injection, you're stuck. You can't really undo what you did. And I feel like a pump gives you, obviously, I love the idea that I can get precise dosing, that I can eat at more convenient times. If I want an extra snack, or I'm at a birthday party, or I'm celebrating with family or friends and I want some dessert, or I want a little extra, I can just bolus for it at the push of a button and not have to worry about sticking myself with another needle. It accounts for insulin on board. And pairing it with the Dexcom G6, like having those two tools, they don't integrate, but having those two tools is absolutely amazing to see. That makes minimal pokes for me and makes type 1 diabetes feel like it's more on the back burner. I have tried the abdomen and the arm for insertion sites. My next insertion site, excuse me, these allergies make me have a very strange voice, as you could tell, the nasally type things, but I'm going to be putting it on my thigh. I'm going to test it there and see what happens. Just keep rotating sites, keeping them away from the same area to avoid scar tissue. My sites heal very quick. There isn't many lumps. There's no pain associated with insertion. I've got good absorption in different insertion sites. I've got comfortability in different absorption sites. Even me being a stomach sleeper, I had it on my abdomen. I'm actually surprised that laying on it or even putting a little pressure on it isn't really bothering it. I was scared it was going to rip the cannula out, or it was going to do something, or it was going to mess with the computer internals. But it did not. Definitely not a problem. But I want to let you guys know that aspect too. And it's just been... to me, it's star striking to me that, like, I'm still in awe that I have this, and I feel like for the first time in my life that I have freedom. I don't feel normal, but I feel more normal. I feel like a normal person, where it's like I just have this device attached to me. My pancreas is external so that I can deliver myself insulin, and I feel like not having to whip out needles and pens and test strips makes diabetes feel a lot less of a burden, if that makes sense. So I wanted to put this in here before I forget about it, and we'll transition back to the rest of the video. So I did not have a smooth transition as far as like the dosing went for my meals, but after I finally got to grips with saying, okay, they obviously didn't give me enough insulin. Once I started knowing that my body needed more, I've started manipulating things, and I'm coming closer and closer to getting to where I need. Obviously, as you can tell, lunch is still a no-go, but we're going to get there. It takes a little time and a little patience, but I would not undo the pump. I definitely would not undo changing to an insulin pump, because so far it has been so convenient. I love that I have a different meter. It's smaller, the test strips are more affordable, and I hit a button on the Omnipod PDM and it will sync that. So if I do want a finger prick or Dexcom isn't working, I have that option. I just love, like I said, I love the convenience. I love being able to feel like diabetes is just a minimal part of my life now. And I feel like I can get amazing control and more precise control with this as soon as I dial my doses in. But I did have a hard time, like I said, transitioning, only because I was getting so burnt out from the high blood sugar. I could totally see why a lot of you guys experience burnout, or have experienced burnout, or have had high blood sugar and have not wanted to take care of it, because it's just like, it's so hard some days to fight through a high, to fight through a low, to fight the same dang battle every single day, because there's no cure, there's no reversing type 1 diabetes, and I could see... And I felt burnt out. I definitely felt like giving up. I felt like this pump is stupid. It's worthless. What the heck did I do? I should have just stayed on shots. But then, obviously, like, I knew in the back of my head at the same time that it's not the pump's fault. It's the settings that are on the pump that are causing me to feel this way. So I took took the bull by the horns and started correcting things myself. And I'm finding things that work really well for me and things that don't really work well for me. Like I said, my endo office relies way too much on math calculations. Their communication isn't very strong, especially since they were, even when I was finishing up like the last week of calling in blood sugars, I had a substitute diabetes nurse and a substitute doctor that made a pretty poor decision about reducing insulin when my blood sugar was high. I was very reluctant to do it. I tried it for several hours, and I was riding high in between meals. But this, even though they didn't make the right decisions, it gave me the push to look at my basal rates first and straighten those out first, and then straighten out the insulin to carb ratios. So as much as I had a poor experience transitioning and fighting through high blood sugar, now that I've almost got myself to a point of regulation like I had on injections, it's been a breeze. It's been like, okay, site change, put it on, insulin's delivered. I don't even have to think about it. It's nice not having to go to bed now and not worrying about, oh crap, did I take my Lantus? And it's nice, like, pushing a button and then I can go make my meal and know that I'm getting insulin delivered in me for my meal. It's nice knowing that, hey, your blood sugar's going a little high, and you obviously, even though you have a unit of insulin on board, if your blood sugar's 170 going up, you totally missed on how much insulin you should have gave yourself for this meal. It's nice to be able to say, give myself an extra unit and a half because I know I'm going to go higher based upon Dexcom's trends to level that off and not go dangerously high. Or, oh, you're trending down, or you're going to exercise. Why don't you just reduce your insulin or shut it off for a certain period of time, or do a temp basal of 0 to kind of just like not go low or make your low blood sugars less severe. It's such an amazing tool to be able to keep your blood sugar in a tighter range while getting insulin delivered more conveniently, while getting insulin delivered in a better format. So the first week on the Omnipod was definitely rough, and it wasn't the best transition. But I know in the weeks to come it's going to be smooth and easy because now that I've almost mastered what my doses are, it's going to make things a heck of a lot easier to just manage and, like I said, keep type 1 diabetes on the back burner. So I want to let you guys know, if you do transition to a pump, expect high blood sugar or expect that your doses probably aren't going to match, because they're probably going to give you ratios that are way too low because they assume that you're going to be ultra sensitive, or they may do it for safety, thinking that we would rather her run high than low, which I guess I get, but at the same time, I don't. Because it didn't take much for me to have a blood sugar of just over 500, and I was nearly dead because of not having enough fluid in my body. My kidneys were shutting down. That was my whole diagnosis story. And severe ketoacidosis was set in at that point. And some of you could have severe ketoacidosis at blood sugars of 300. And the fact that I almost reached those levels was starting to scare me. High, you'd rather me run high. I would not like to be on a dialysis machine when I'm older. I'd like to be able to see. I'd like to be able to hold my grandbabies one day and be able to hold them and rock them and kiss them and not go numb in my fingers. All those little things that people take for granted. It's like high blood sugar in the short term is fine, but in the long term it's not. And I think they feel like it's not doing damage, when in reality, even having high blood sugar in the short term, you could be doing damage and you don't even know it. And they're more concerned with low blood sugar because they think that, oh my gosh, she's going to crash and burn and she's going to die right away. Not always the case. So I don't think endo offices really look at the long-term effect of high blood sugar. They only look at the short-term effect. And the same with low blood sugar. They're only looking at the short-term effect and not the long-term effect, because actually low blood sugars can be dangerous too, just as dangerous as highs. They're not good. You don't want them. But definitely am starting to figure things out, and I'm very happy with my choice on the Omnipod. I love not being hooked up to tubes. I loved the convenience of things, and I like that it's made diabetes so much more, I guess, enjoyable would be a word, because sometimes, like I said, this disease is a pain in the rear, and you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, you're going to have things that aren't going to make sense. But I feel like having this tool to manipulate insulin and manipulate how you bolus for certain foods better mirrors a non-diabetic's pancreas, because non-diabetic's pancreas will adjust the body to keep it in a tight range, and you really can only manipulate insulin so much on injections. You really can't manipulate it like a pancreas in a non-diabetic unless you have an insulin pump. So anyways, this is my first week on the insulin pump, the Omnipod insulin pump, the Dash. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, not a smooth transition, but nonetheless, we're going to keep going forward. I will give you guys more reviews about why I chose it, a 1-month review, some of the different features with the Dash, and I will let you guys know what goes on then. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. And until tomorrow for another video, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye, everyone.